to Let's Talk Stroke. I am your host and stroke survivor, Jerry Walt. And for those of you that are new here, I started doing this show to bring awareness to stroke, TBI, aphasia, brain injury, mental health. And I also want to provide a platform for all survivors to share their knowledge and their stories from all across the world. And also bringing on experts in brain health so they can share their knowledge with us. Um, so this morning, my guest is Caitlin Hebb, and I hope I can get this exactly right, neurologic music therapist fellow, and also clinical operations manager with MEDRhythms. And she'll explain exactly what MEDRhythms does and what they are all about. And also, please make comments, ask questions, and also, if you have not done it yet, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and Let's Talk Stroke. And we'll go ahead and get started now. All righty, good morning. And Catherine Jordan, nice to see you out here. And let's go ahead and bring on Caitlin. Good
Hi.
morning.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
good. How are you?
Good. Awesome. Good to see you. And thanks for being here. And nice to see you guys all out here. And Angie, nice to see you. Hopefully you can see the comments out there.
Yes, good morning. It is
Yeah.
a great morning. It's beautiful
Yeah.
out.
Is it? Oh, here it's pouring rain.
Oh, no.
Cold. Yeah, beautiful Texas.
Oh, it's gorgeous in Massachusetts, so
Ah,
it's nice. We've had a little bit of a break from the clouds. We're getting some sun today, so.
oh, good. That's good. Yeah, we have some crazy weather out here. Let's see here. I see a lot of you guys out here. Tamara, nice to see you. Kelly, if I missed you guys, oh yeah, thank you for saying Caitlin out here. Am I butchering your name?
No, Caitlin? Yeah, you
Yeah.
got it. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So, Caitlin, who is? I guess first start with who is Caitlin?
Who's me? Oh, I don't know. We want to go that deep.
Okay.
No, so I am a neurologic music therapist fellow. I am the clinical operations manager for MedRhythms. On a side note, I am a huge coffee connoisseur and I love hiking, and I have a 14-month-old, so my life is pretty crazy.
Wow.
But yeah, so I'm a music therapist. I've started as a musician and loving music,
Oh,
and that kind of developed into trying to figure out how to do it as a career and use it in the way that I had always thought music could be used. And so that led me to NMT.
wow. What instrument? Do you play an instrument?
Yeah, I'm primarily a vocalist, so
Oh,
I've sang my whole life. I've sang a lot with my brother growing up, and then as a music therapist, you have to be proficient on guitar, piano, and percussion a little bit. I also play like the ukulele. I've played the oboe. So
wow. Good for
yeah.
you. That's awesome. Yeah, I have my whole set of drums. You can't see them. They're right in the corner. I play the drums. Well, I used to play
Oh,
the drums pretty
cool.
good, but now, when I had my stroke, my right side is affected, so there goes
Hmm.
that. But
Okay.
it's funny that you mentioned you used to sing. Maybe you still do. Um,
Oh yeah.
do you know who Ed Sullivan is?
The show, Ed Sullivan Show.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my,
of
my
course.
mother was on that at 8 years old, playing the piano and singing. Just I don't know why I throw
Wow.
that out there, but you know,
I
it was,
love that she's famous then.
yeah, oh
A
yeah,
lot of yeah.
she's 86 years old.
Oh my goodness. Does
Just
she still play?
yeah, a little. Um,
Okay.
she does. She plays for all the grandkids.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So wow, that good for you. And now MedRhythms, that's where you ended up, and what a great company. I mean, the little research that I've done, it's just pretty amazing. So, and I've never used the sensors, but maybe you could talk about what that all is.
Yeah, I can talk. So MedRhythms, actually MedRhythms originated as a clinical practice. So we we provide neurologic music therapy services, and we were kind of based. The CEO, the founder, Brian Harris, he started as a clinician and was working at Spalding Rehab, which is in the greater Boston area,
Yes.
and basically was doing a lot of clinical work and seeing a really good impact. And people at the time said, this is great. How do I get this service outside of the hospital, right? So when they go home or in an outpatient setting, at the time, unfortunately, it was that you couldn't, and there was no clinicians that he could refer to. And that kind of started the whole mission of MedRhythms and creating access to this care. And so that developed kind of further. We started a clinical practice and hired clinicians, being able to treat in home and outpatient, and now telehealth, as well as going for bigger access. We have a digital division who's working on a product or a device that will be first launched in stroke with the stroke population.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so I can't talk too much about it because it's not commercially available yet, but
Right.
they're in the works and hopes to be able to bring one of the interventions we use in clinical practice for walking. So to use a rhythmic structure to help with walking. So
Right.
this device that they're building and will be putting out will hopefully create more access and help people with walking. So
Right. Yeah. By the way, I saw there was a comment on when I did the promo for this show. I got a message from Marina. She said she worked with you.
Marina,
Yeah.
yeah.
I didn't see her last name, but I did see
Oh, Marina.
what
Hey, Marina.
Marina. Yeah, I know Marina. Is that the same Marina? Marina
I don't
Ramos?
know. I
Oh,
I believe I'm not 100%. I know I've worked with a Marina, so
yeah. It's pretty cool that that she mentioned um, you and said that
yeah,
she worked with you. That's
yeah,
awesome.
that is
Um,
cool.
yeah. So nice to see you guys here, Serena. She puts her flag there from Canada. Nice to see you. And I saw a bow here from Norway. So good to
Um,
see you guys.
Looks
So
like people are already singing too. They sing songs every day as part of his therapy. That's great.
yeah, yeah, that's really cool. So Marina, okay, that's what it is. She put your name. Okay,
I don't
Argoner.
know. I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to check later on. You can message me and we'll connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah. So let's see. So what are you talking about? Like there's sensors and ear plugs that because I saw a lot of stuff on that. It looks like you have some videos, don't you?
Yeah, I have some videos. So that we don't necessarily have videos of the product or the device that we're going to be putting out. That's going to be for later. And as I mentioned, it will first be launched with the stroke population. I do have videos of, and I can go a little bit more in depth about like what neurologic music therapy is.
That'd be great.
Yeah, and then I have some videos of what it actually looks like because the product itself was based again on the clinical practice and what the implementation for clinicians would be.
Okay.
And so, yeah, well, I can explain what NNT is first for those who maybe you people I think have largely heard of music therapy as a field, and a lot of music therapists work in a lot of different settings and they work with a
Right.
lot of different populations. Neurologic music therapy is a particular system within music therapy that focuses really more on the neuroscience of music and then how that can help with non-musical goals. So that could be walking, it could be speech and language, or it could be cognition, memory
Right.
and attention. And so basically, what how NMT came to be was that they had started studying music in the brain and found that music has a really big impact on its ability to recruit from other areas. This widespread activation of the brain so that it's able to actually recruit from multiple areas and use that further to help with neuroplasticity. So,
Yes.
you all are probably familiar with that term, but neuroplasticity, be able to retrain the brain or train the brain if there's been damage to it. Um, but using different pathways, so
Right.
that different connectivity within our brain. And music is really like one of the most powerful and probably the only stimulus we know of that creates such widespread activation.
Wow.
And that's what powers the interventions we use in clinical practice. So, to help with walking, to help with language, it's a really, really unique and strong tool that we can use. And we have, standardized interventions. Once they did that research, they figured out, oh, okay, like this is the structure, this is how you implement it. But it is definitely really powerful.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it's
yeah,
rewiring the brain, isn't it?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's good. I like this, that, a lot of people really it sounds so interesting. I see Marina, yeah, and Bo. So really, this stuff is kind of well, maybe it's been around for a while, but you guys are taking to the next level.
It is relatively, I mean, when we think of the broader field of healthcare, it's still relatively new. And, fMRI imaging became available in the 1990s. So
Oh,
it's really
wow.
not that's when kind of was a pivotal moment for the field of neurologic music therapy, with being able to actually understand, like, how is music impacting our brain.
Right.
And so from that point, so when you think about it, in the 1990s, it's not
Not at
that
all.
long ago. It's still kind of developing as a field, but I think developing in a way that we just see it working with more and more populations and different diagnoses.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, no,
yeah.
it really is interesting. I mean, I a lot of people like when I go to therapy, they talk about music therapy, but they
Mm,
don't really do a lot.
mhm,
Well, actually do anything. They talk about music therapy and singing and it helps with stress and all that,
mm,
all that kind of stuff. But
yeah.
yeah, Kelly's that you see the question here that
Yeah, how
Kelly.
does it enhance cognition? Um, do you want me to address that, Jerry, you think?
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
okay,
Yeah, you feel free to
cool.
jump all in and.
This is my first time doing a live podcast where there's questions popping up,
Oh,
so
okay,
that's
okay.
really exciting.
Well,
Um,
well, that's perfect. And I'll put you full here so you can
yeah,
answer questions and I won't
yeah.
be
Oh,
interrupting.
no. So, well, Kelly, to answer your question, so in a way that we think about using music as a cognitive training tool, right? So when we engage in a music making process, there's a lot involved. Actually, predating some of the interventions, they had done a lot of research on musicians' brains to see, if you're engaging and you're learning an instrument, how does that impact your cognition or your brain, right? And there's a lot of literature that has shown that through that functional connectivity, so music is in connecting with multiple areas, but then also further through that high repetition and practice. If you can imagine learning an instrument, there's a lot of details, fine details, memory components, muscle memory, right? And just learning that goes into it, that they found that musicians also have a anatomical difference in their brain, so a structural difference. So just by learning an instrument through that highly repetitive process and kind of fine tuning, they were able to see both functional and structural differences in the musician's brain versus a non-musician. The way that we treat it clinically is different in that we would probably focus on a particular part of cognition. So that might be, we're working on attention, right? So we're going to address someone's sustained attention, and we're going to do that with using music, right? So music is always what's driving the function. It's always what is. It's always the tool versus just purely the clinician. So in that case, maybe we're having someone attend and play stop and start with an instrument with us, or it could be speed up and slow down. As do other areas, for example, like memory, maybe we're using something like a music mnemonic to help with recall or to remember a particular series of events. Or it could also be, in a hospital setting, we use a lot of orientation information, but we'll set that to a tune where we can then use it to help with the recall component. So there's a lot of ways to address cognition. It just depends on the area that you're working.
Uh, Thank you for answering that. And there's also another some more questions. I pulled it up here too.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
if you can't see it, is music
Mhm.
therapy introduced to stroke survivors from the beginning?
So it depends on where you are, right? It depends on the level of care, and then also I think kind of location wise geographically, that's actually something. There's not a lot of neurologic music therapists. It's again relatively small
Right.
field. I think I heard a statistic that like we cover maybe 1% of the largest physical therapy practice.
Wow.
So there's just not a lot of us. So it might not be introduced in the very beginning. There are some music therapists who work in intensive care units, and again, the goals that they're addressing would be very different than what we would be addressing in more of a rehabilitation hospital. So usually, if you get to, if you came to Spalding, for example, we'd get a referral from your doctor and we'd try to see you as quickly as possible. And then you would get, treatment for a certain amount of time. Once you discharged or went home or went to another facility, we would hope that you would continue with that plan of care.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I see. Let's see here.
See, yeah.
There's somebody. I think Tamara, you asked another question, but it actually not just stroke survivors. It's other brain injury survivors.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. We work with a lot of, I mean, our MedRhythm specifically works with mostly neuro injury or disease. So that
Right.
could be stroke, traumatic brain injury. We've worked a lot with spinal cord injury patients at Spalding. In the outpatient setting, we work a lot with like Parkinson's disease or
Yeah.
multiple sclerosis, autism spectrum disorder. So
Wow.
there's a wide range of individuals that we've worked with.
Wow. It's so interesting to hear all this. Um, it's just really coming around. It seems like.
Yeah, I think the important thing to note is that we're really focused on function, so it's really much more about, i- if you are working on your walking, could you use music to help with your walking?
Right.
And less of if you have Parkinson's, do music therapy. It's more of if you have a gait impairment that you'd like to work on. Same thing if you have, we work on that function of language. If you have aphasia or if you have apraxia, we can use music to help with those areas.
Yeah.
So
That's terrific. Yeah. Now, I did read something about um, people, or maybe you could probably talk about algorithms and how it assesses the user. Is that
yeah, so that's related to the product and what ideally what we're trying to do and what the product will do is it has an algorithm again that's based on the clinical intervention that's called rhythmic auditory stimulation. So it's based off that intervention, and the algorithm will take in certain data components of your walking,
right?
and then it's going to, again, music is what's driving the change, so it's going to alter or change the music based off the algorithm and what it's collecting. And so that's it's a really cool and innovative approach to being able to kind of digitize or provide again access to rhythmic auditory stimulation. So
Right.
but that's kind of what the algorithm is. So it's taking in data, and then it's using the music to drive the change.
Well, and then basically you're walking to the beat.
Yeah, exactly. So I can show a clinical example of that because that might actually kind of put into context. Actually, rhythm is one of our most, when you think about music, we think of music as this like very like holistic. It's all of it, right? It's the drums, it's the singing, it's the
Yeah.
melody, it's the familiarity of it. But when we think as clinicians, we kind of break it down specifically and we look at the components of music. So one of the most important things that we found in music and what drives a lot of the interventions we do is the rhythm component. And
Okay.
so we use rhythm to help a lot with walking because walking is naturally rhythmic, right?
Yeah,
Until
absolutely.
it's not, until something impacts our ability to walk rhythmically,
Right.
something like a stroke or something, like Parkinson's. And so the idea is that we're giving the external rhythm to help with the actual rhythmicity of someone's walking.
Right. Okay.
So I can show an
Yep.
example of that.
Perfect. Okay.
Let me just pull this up. Um, and so this is someone who experienced a stroke,
Okay.
and I can kind of talk through what the decisions were made. Let's
Okay.
see.
Now I'll take the chat away, but I still can see it. Just for a second, but we'll be able to see it. Mike Carroll from New York, my buddy. Nice to see you. Let's see
Uh,
here. Uh,
can you see this okay? Perfect.
yeah, let's yeah, let me try one other thing here.
Okay.
Okay. Now,
I can make it big screen too, I think. There we go.
ah,
Okay, so
there-
this is someone who had a stroke. So we're actually working at the hospital with this individual. So still in that acute phase. You're going to see that he walks with a 3-point pattern, or he walks with his cane and then he'll take 2 steps.
right,
And so we're in the protocol, rhythmic auditory stimulation. What we first do is we start by taking their baseline cadence or their steps per minute. And then we're actually going to apply the music to that baseline to see how they walk with the beat first and foremost. So you'll see his baseline and then I'll show the music component.
okay.
Hurry up. Smiley. I'm almost done. Okay?
Yeah, almost here, without a cane.
Good plan. Okay. Hurry up. All right.
So you can see it's relatively slow, his walking, right? It's
Right.
very and a little bit of that like asymmetry. I'm gonna speed it up so you can see what it looks like now when he uses the music.
Okay.
And this is at his baseline cadence.
All right.
So then basically the protocol, or what drives the algorithm, is that it says, okay, this is great. We want to actually increase the cadence that this individual has. So we're going to change the music to be a little bit faster. And so that looks a little bit like this. And then from there, because the cane was largely being used for balance and not
Right.
necessarily strength or weakness, it's more natural or more rhythmic, right, to walk in a 2-point without a cane. So the clinician decided to take the cane away and also increase the cadence that he was walking. So let's see, I'll get to that place. Here we go. So then again, the idea is that, okay, this looks good. We start to see a little bit of arm swing, but now we actually want to go a little bit faster. Going faster can sometimes improve your balance. It can improve your coordination, your symmetry. And so that's exactly what they're going to do, is they're going to increase the tempo. And then we're actually going to go a little bit faster. So this is towards the end. And then the idea within our interventions, so one of the most important parts of the work that we do is that it's great that they can do it in the music context, but the most important part is, can they do it outside of the music context? So can they carry over the function that we've trained, right, with music, and now can they do it without music?
What a difference.
Yeah. So that's the idea. You can see, and I'll stop sharing here.
Okay. That's absolutely incredible the way how long was it when he with the music till when he walked without the music?
That was one session. So
Wow.
yeah, and he had been receiving physical therapy for a couple of weeks, I think, prior to NMT being consulted.
Right?
But that was within one session that you see, and he had a very particular type of stroke that I think gave in a sense, again, he didn't have that weakness, right? Some people have much more of
Yeah.
a stronger weakness or a dense hemiparetic side,
Yes.
and so if that's the case, the process might actually take a little bit longer, right? You're not necessarily going to see as quick as results, but he didn't necessarily have the same weakness that someone else might have, which
Yeah.
is why you see that very quick response.
Yeah, that's incredible. So he was obviously wasn't wearing an AFO. If,
No, he wasn't. He had a ataxia, so much more of a coordination deficit, and
right.
again, not that, he didn't have any. I don't believe he had any tone or again, that
Wow.
weakness that would, typical why you would have an AFO or a
Yeah.
brace.
Yeah. I should see the you know, the ankle still, you know, whatever it's called. I can't when
Well,
you
he did have that, so, like, the coordination component where, like, the sensory piece of, like, where your foot is landing in
right.
space, right? So,
Yeah.
it still was not, like, 100% smooth, and actually post this, what you probably would do is you might actually train at that faster pace for quite some time, so in the initial moment, we collect their baseline, but then the treatment progression actually is going to probably train at those faster paces to smooth
Yeah.
out that gait piece. So yeah, he definitely still had a little bit of that like variability within his step.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah.
That's just amazing. I mean, how quick that is. We need to get we need to get this out more. You know, to
Yeah,
everyone
great. Yeah,
that had a brain injury like that, or a stroke, or
yeah. We think so too.
Parkinson's, definitely for sure. That's just a
Mm.
I mean, I don't know. You can't see. Can you see the comments that are not, yeah, or I have to just bring them up?
Yeah, that looks like they're not popping up. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that's one of the reasons why MedRhythms is what it is, and the mission that we have is we know that a lot of people don't get this care right off the bat. So the question of do you get music therapy right away?
Right.
And that unfortunately, there's not a way
No.
for us to do that. And so our mission and also like why I'm here today is to talk about it, right? And share with people that this is a service that exists
Yeah.
and that they could have access to. So
Yeah. It is. It is actually. I don't see. I've been going. I had my stroke 12 years ago, a little more than 12 years
mhm.
ago, and I've seen some music therapy, but it wasn't like this. It was just singing or someone, trying to just sing or play a beat, but nothing like
Yeah.
what this is all about. Um, and so Brian and another gentleman,
Owen.
oh, and that's it, yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, well, Brian, I mean, he was a therapist. I mean,
Yeah.
we're going back to he's the CEO of the company. He was a therapist, wasn't he?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
he is the CEO, and
he
Owen
is.
is the
Yeah.
president. And but he still is. He's a clinician. He's a neurologic music therapist. He actually, funny story, was my practicum and internship supervisor before he
Wow.
was my boss.
Wow. That
Yeah,
is
so
wow. He recruited you?
clearly he's a great guy to work for. So I stuck
Yeah,
around.
that's it's great. I mean, looking at the company, if anybody, let me see if I have because it is absolutely incredible. This is if you can anybody want to look up MedRhythms, that's their
Yeah.
you know
We have two websites. So that's MedRhythms. That will give you a lot of good information about our product and what we're looking to put out. So definitely check that out. And then we also have medrhythmstherapy.com, which talks more about the clinical practice. And so that also is a good resource I think there's different stages in what you're looking for as far as services go, and both are great websites for
right.
resources.
Yeah. Um, so I see your comments, Salute and Kelly. Yeah, and, I caught up on the okay, yeah. Here's another comment there. Why don't all hospitals have it right off the start?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, I think again, there's a couple of reasons. So one of them being that there's not a lot of clinicians. The second being that uh, the second being that, of course, when hospitals have these programs, a lot of them are funded through grants or funded through foundations and donors, and those are really important, right? However, it isn't a reimbursed service at this time, or the widely reimbursed, and so that makes it very challenging
Yes.
to fund a lot of programs. So I imagine that's partially financially, just it's challenging, though definitely would be beneficial for a lot of people and places.
Right,
Um,
right.
so
Let's see here. There's another. I think there was one. There's there are a lot music. Yeah. Look at all these comments. I appreciate everybody. Making comments. True, Mike. Mike, you see Mike's comment there? Music is free.
yes, yeah,
True.
and that's the other thing is that why it's so effective is that music is free, but it's very salient, right? It's something that if you think about, again, we think about that like widespread activation. If you're in your car and you're listening to music, right, you might be singing along, you might be moving to the beat.
Yeah.
Maybe this song has a particular memory that's associated with it. Maybe it was at your wedding, or maybe it was a song that you have between you and your kid. There's definitely a lot of connections that music has, and it's just widely available, right? We think about life. Could you imagine doing life without music, right? If you've ever gone for a run without music, well, for me it's torture, but
Yeah.
uh but yeah, and also if you think about like elevators, or if you've gone into a restaurant, or if you've gone into a clothing store and it's just silent, it can be almost uncomfortable, like kind of awkward,
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely.
So music fills the gaps for sure.
It certainly does.
I see someone mention melodic intonation.
Yeah, interesting, Paul.
Yeah. And that's actually an intervention we use a
Is it?
lot in our clinical practice. It's called melodic intonation therapy. And that actually is what we use a lot for the language component. So people who were in a sense trying to access propositional speech or language, those kind of functional phrases. I also have a video of that, Jerry, if we want to show
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. You let me
So
know
this
when.
is that singing component. This is where melodic intonation therapy, it really heavily recruits from the right hemisphere. So language and speech are kind of predominantly a left hemisphere function.
Right?
And so we're using music to recruit from the right hemisphere. And then again, at that functional connectivity where we can kind of train a different pathway. Imagine like I always take Route 93 to work. But if that was blocked off, I'd have to take 95 to get around it and take a detour. And
Right?
so that's kind of what we're doing with music is we're taking this detour, but we still get an equal result. And the idea is that we train that enough that the individual can use that pathway or that route to be able
Right.
to speak again versus just singing. So yeah, I think I can get this queued up if that works.
And for now, it's just in your region. Or
So
getting clinicians all around the country.
there are all over the world actually. So the Neurologic Music Therapy Academy is it is the academy that trains and was originally developed in the field of neurologic music therapy. MEDRhythms currently is just located in the Boston area, and then we have a clinical practice and a program in New York as well.
Nice.
And then our digital division is located in Maine. We do offer telehealth though, so we do actually see a lot of people throughout the world. But
Sure, yeah. Probably got popular during the pandemic.
yes, was one of
Yeah.
the reasons we opened it up, because we realized we can talk more about that. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, you got it there. So I'm going to take down this right here. And let's bring on.
Okay, so this is Peter. He also had a stroke, and he has aphasia. He also has apraxia. So aphasia is the loss of language.
Yep.
Apraxia is a motor speech. It's a motor planning disorder or deficit, and essentially. What you're going to see is the use of melodic intonation therapy and also therapeutic singing or familiar music to help with both the language and the speech component. So I'll let you watch this, and then we can talk about it.
Sounds good.
Try it again. I'm Peter. I'm Peter. I'm Peter. How are you? How are you?
And this was after 6 months, I believe he saw him twice a week for an hour and a half.
Hello, I'm Peter. How are you? I am good. Thank you. How are you? You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray.
So yeah, you can see kind of the profound difference in not only just those phrases, so that like I'm Peter, right, where he could
Yeah.
actually produce the phrases himself. But then in his singing afterwards, after doing a lot of that training, you saw, oh, hi Sasha. Yay, that is the marina. Okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Sasha was the
Oh,
one I think making the comments. I think so.
yeah.
But
Aw.
I've used that.
My love goes out to you.
Yeah,
But yeah, so that is the idea, is that you use the music, and that like the music component and the singing also helps with the motor planning and the production,
yeah.
in addition to just the language piece.
That's so interesting because looking back how when I couldn't talk, that helped me in the very beginning. Just
Mm.
I don't know if it was a guitar or something. But anyway, but
Yeah, I saw someone else's comments too. They said they did a little bit of singing in the acute care, and then kind of kept it going. So it's something that I think actually like most people will say, if you have difficulty speaking, they'll say like, "Oh, can you sing happy birthday?" And they
yes,
notice the results right away. Um, and
absolutely.
that's what we're using. So we're using music to help with that access to language.
Right, right. This is terrific. I mean, I can't believe that we haven't done this sooner because this is so important to help,
Yeah.
uh, brain injury. I always say brain injury because of TBI, stroke, um,
Yep.
you know, Parkinson's. Not really, I've known people with Parkinson's, but not as much as stroke because this
Yeah.
community that I'm kind of involved with and TBI,
Absolutely.
aphasia, that's this, wow. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we were gonna talk about something else, and I can't remember what it is. Your memory is better than mine,
I
obviously, but
have all of those moments all the time, so I understand.
yeah, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
wow.
They
So what
call
else
yeah.
did we that we need to learn about music therapy, especially in your world?
Yeah, well, we were gonna talk about telehealth.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's it. Thank
So,
you.
yeah, no, that just sparked in me, so thank you. Um, yeah, so I think that was, during actually kind of before the pandemic had happened. It was like around 2019. A colleague of mine and we were talking about, how do we create bigger access, or how do we actually, give people this when we're in Boston. We had Prior to this, we had had people reach out from all over saying, "Oh, I've seen MEDRhythms, like, can I work with your clinicians?" And again,
Wow.
at the time, it was that, "Oh, we don't really have a way to do that. We don't have a clinician. Like, if we ever start a program in Arizona or Illinois or wherever it is, like,
Yeah.
we'll touch base and we'll let you know."
Hmm.
And so we had kind of kept a running list, but in the back of our minds, we were thought, how could we do this potentially via telehealth? And so around 2019, we said, okay, we're going to do one intervention for one population, you know,
Nice.
one delivery of one service, and we'll test it to see what happens, right? And
Absolutely.
then, of course, COVID happened, and we were like, okay, so we're going to do all of the interventions with all of the populations. It was just, we had to be able to, well, first and foremost, treat the people we were seeing on an in-home basis.
Right, right.
Uh, and then it opened up a whole new world where we really developed a lot of resources. We put together a really solid platform that we could deliver this service via telehealth, so that we weren't limited any longer by
Right.
location. Um,
Absolutely.
there's still some considerations we take for people who aren't necessarily, super appropriate for telehealth, but we do actually a complimentary consultation just to make sure that it actually fits for that person before we actually move forward with treatment. So
Wow.
it's a great option if you're not in Boston.
Yeah, absolutely. I just had to bring this up here, Mike.
Now the dog's in there. Go to my house.
Uh,
Oh, I love that.
and I see Salute she has a comment there. Do you see that comment there?
Yes,
I
is the telehealth covered by insurance? That one?
Yes.
So it's not. It largely, again, it's an out-of-pocket cost.
Yeah.
It's not reimbursed by insurance. There are ways, and we've had some people who will attempt to get reimbursement, um, not through us as the practice getting reimbursing, but as themselves. So if you have any self-directed funds or something along those lines, we've had some people who have advocated and have been reimbursed by their insurance.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
it depends, and it also I typically tell people, 99% of the time, they're gonna say no 3 times, and then, they'll work with you. Um,
Appeal.
so
Appeal after
yeah,
appeal.
exactly. There you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
Appeal, appeal, appeal.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And then that happens because there's other equipment manufacturers, same thing. That
yep.
same thing. You just gotta keep appealing until they say yes, or just until you've been exhausted. But
Yep,
um,
advocacy is something I think a lot of people learn through
absolutely,
this journey, is how to advocate for yourself and the people who you love. So,
yeah, absolutely. Your caregiver. Um,
mhm.
I'm I yeah. I always bring these comments. These really important. I really like when everybody comments and asks questions, especially when like you're here.
Mm.
You're the expert at this. So um, again, thank you for being here. It's just terrific.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
love touching base with people that have experienced. I think one of the best experiences I've ever had was at this. It was a stroke camp that I had gone to, and it was the first time that I got to hear beyond the hospital walls someone's journey with a stroke and someone's experience and their new life after having a stroke or a brain
right,
injury.
right,
And as a clinician, it was really impactful to hear that side of it, because it's why we do what we do. We want to help people and we want to give them the resources they need. But again, after they leave the hospital, you don't necessarily always get to touch base with those people and see how they're doing.
right,
And so I think it's super important as a clinician to constantly be in tune and in touch with people who are in the community and living with stroke or brain injury.
right.
So thank you for having me. This is
Oh,
fantastic.
no, this has been terrific, and I appreciate the questions, you guys. So keep it asking or keep commenting. I know that Caitlin probably really appreciates it to
Hmm.
get in front of everybody um, to
Mm.
answer your question, because I do see quite a bit of them here. And if we've missed
Yeah.
them, oops, you can always go back and answer them.
Yeah, you can always contact me too if you have further
Yeah,
questions or more specific questions.
yeah, definitely.
Um, One thing that looks like it gets brought up is potentially like people working with their loved one, or how to use music like individually. And so that's something that I feel like I get a lot of questions about
Yeah,
is, okay, yeah, how do I use music in my everyday life?
right.
If let's say I have aphasia and I want to work on language and I want to use music, um, a couple of tips for how to use music when you think about language. I would pick a couple of songs that are not too wordy. So there's some artists that we absolutely love, but it's so lyrically driven that it's really hard to keep up with.
Right.
So picking songs that are a little bit more rhythmic structured, or maybe it's a little bit slower, or it's not so wordy, and you could use those to sing along and practice. As you advance, maybe you start picking up some of those more lyrically driven
Right.
uh, songs. You can challenge yourself a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, other
Me-
things you can think of would be like just saying the lyrics rhythmically and then singing it, right? Versus just singing it right away.
Right.
So you can definitely do that type of, self therapy as well.
Yeah. Would you be able to on this comment section one possible for people with a vision problem? I'll have to, Jenny. I'm not sure how we do that right now, but I'm sure. Oh, okay. So what I could, well, I could read the comments but we'll have to do that. Contact me later, and then we can talk about that. I don't know if you.
Yeah, I don't know if there's an enclosed caption. Is that what it's called, Jenny? Something like that. I don't know if
That's
that
exactly.
option is on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the question? Do you recommend see if I say it right, a metronome? We had one on my mom's piano, but
Yeah,
do you
yeah.
recommend that at all when you're?
Yeah, so that you had a real metronome. A lot of
Yeah.
times what I recommend for people who, because we have smartphones now and phones that have a bunch of apps on it, you can get a metronome on your phone that you can use. I recommend, I basically, it's not necessarily recommending a metronome, but I recommend the use of rhythm in a lot of
Okay.
the functions I've talked about. So let's say what's nice about a metronome, actually, I can pull one up for people to see. The one that I use, and actually most of them that you can find, they have a tap function here. And so let's say you're trying to figure out like where you step naturally.
Right.
If you kind of tap out where you're stepping, you might be able to actually like find the cadence range, right? So here you see the cadence range is changing based off where I'm tapping. So it's going up 72 to 71. So you can find approximately like where you're stepping. And then from there, you can kind of set the metronome to that pace.
Nice.
The
Yeah.
other thing, I actually see someone commenting, they know people don't stutter when they sing. And actually using a metronome or a rhythm can sometimes be really helpful to use for people who have dysfluencies or if they stutter. So it's a super helpful tool that you can
Yeah.
also use. We call this rhythmic speech cueing. So this would be like, said like, I'm on the show today with Jerry. Da 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 da. Right? It's got this
Yeah.
kind of like sing-songy, and then what you can do is you can increase the tempo to I'm on the show today with Jerry. So it gets a little bit more like speech.
Yeah.
So it's just a little bit more. It's all rhythmically driven, but
Wow.
yeah.
So there, Yvonne, thanks from Athens, Greece. Nice to see you here. But this is, let's see, any other questions here? Marina, I'm so glad you, what'd you say? Great show, and thank you.
Mhm.
That's, any other comments that you want to make on this too? Hey, Lily, did we not? Because I don't want to miss anything that since you're here, what could we cover?
Yeah. I honestly, I feel like we covered a lot. If people have questions, we are currently building a wait list. Someone asked about clinical studies. We do have potentially some studies if you're interested in participating. And you're always welcome to reach out to us and we can recruit you for those studies. I think a lot of them we might potentially have some down the line for the device that I had previously spoken about. I don't know
Wow.
like all the specifics, but I think we do have some just opportunities to collaborate and work with MedRhythms if you're interested. We're hoping to do more clinical studies. Obviously, it's still, again, a relatively new field, so it would be great to be able to study the work that we're doing. And they always just really help validate the work that you're doing. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
if you're
absolutely.
interested, we might have some opportunities. So you can always, um, I'll get you that email, Jerry.
Okay. Yeah, and
But you can also reach out to me.
yeah, and if you in the promo when I first put this up, you'll see all the information how to get a hold of Caitlin on that. So it's available, and I'll also put it in the comments when the show's over, so you guys can go back and it'll be on there. But I know that yeah, so we'll get that all in there. And Serena, thanks for saying that for Jenny. But
Oh.
yeah, we've pretty much covered everything. But you're so the best thing is go to your website, because I did see some of the videos,
Mhm.
little clips on the shoes, and
Yes.
then
Yeah, so that would be MedRhythms. So about our device and our product, if you go to medrhythms.com, it will show you kind of what the product looks like and where they're currently at. Also, who to touch base if you'd like more information.
absolutely.
And then if you go to medrhythmstherapy.com, you'll see our clinical practice. We actually have more clinical videos on that website as well. So if you'd like
Okay.
to see maybe what this looks like with a different population, or if you want to see what this looks like focusing on maybe cognition or
Yeah.
left neglect, you can see some videos on that website.
Okay.
And then if you have questions, you can always reach out to me about the clinical service.
Oh, that's perfect. This is great.
Yeah.
So much good information here. So
I think the big takeaway is that use music in your life. It's an incredibly profound tool. If even if it's making yourself a playlist that you walk to, or if it's singing in your shower, or maybe you sing a little bit louder now because you know how it can help you. But I think, the point is that music is really impactful, and I hope I inspired people to use music in their everyday lives. So.
absolutely, it's absolutely, yeah. I know I do. I mean, I come from a completely musical family.
Mm.
Brothers, sisters. We all
Oh,
played. We're
you're
like the
very well.
Brady Bunch.
Yeah.
Brady Bunch. I know came out
Uh,
wrong. But
we'll see the comments pop up after that.
yeah, absolutely. Wow.
Yeah, I get that. I actually same. I grew up. I have 5 older siblings, so we actually
Okay.
were like the Brady Bunch.
Wow.
Um, yeah. So
Everybody play an instrument?
yeah, yeah. Not really. Not all of them. Mostly just my brother and I. But my mom and my dad both are singers.
Oh, nice. Yeah, everybody in our family, same thing. Everybody played something except my dad. He played the kazoo, the kazoo,
Yeah,
the
hey,
drum
that's a great
instrument.
instrument. Yeah.
He was humming it.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's a great instrument. It's also the cheapest you can find out there, so
absolutely. I know. Absolutely. Wow.
Yeah.
So like for an ending statement, usually when I'm interviewing stroke survivors, always ask them you know, what would you tell somebody that's going through having a stroke, and that's what. But for
Mm.
you, what would you tell somebody that's new at the music? Because I bet we don't see my guess, 90% of people that go to therapy don't use music. At least I think,
Yeah.
but we need to.
I actually think my advice for someone who's learning an instrument or getting into music, as well as my
Yeah.
advice for someone who has had a stroke, is to never give up, because I think that is the perseverance, repetition,
Yeah.
and then also do whatever you need to be your best advocate, but
Yeah.
also use resources that are available to you. I'm here on this stream, if you have questions, you're welcome to reach out to me. And if you feel like you're getting stuck, there's probably someone out there who has thought of a unique way to help you. And so I would say, music is a really profound tool. And you once you start to get past the initial, like, there's definitely a period of learning music. I felt this way about the guitar, where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
It's too hard. My fingers hurt. Like, I don't have calluses yet. They were developing. But I'm so glad I stuck with it, because now I can use it in a way that I couldn't previously. I can sit down and strum out some, songs and use it for 5 minutes, and then I can put it down and walk away from it.
Right.
So
Yeah.
never give up.
I appreciate it so much. And if you are going to contact Kaylin, just say you're on the show, because there's a lot of, I don't want to say scammers. There's a lot of people out there in the world that, but for Kaylin, just reach out to her. You can find her. I'll put it in the comment section. Again, this was on YouTube, several Facebook pages. It was on Twitter. Hopefully it made it to LinkedIn and Twitch. So it was all live. So I appreciate you guys being here. And if you haven't subscribed, I always have to throw that out there. Is my YouTube channel is Let's Talk Stroke, and there it is right there. So well, again, I really appreciate it, and definitely we'll be in touch, and we'll have to. I can't wait for this clinical studies, or when who wants to be in. I certainly want to put my name in the hat here, because I think it's just
Okay, there we go.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for having me. Again, I appreciate it. It's always important for me to touch base, and happy to come back whenever.
Absolutely. We need to put a game plan in and figure this. We'll do another show. I think it'd be terrific.
Cool.
So,
all right.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you everybody too.
Thank
we'll
you
see
for
you
the
on the next-
questions.
Are there any other ones? Yeah. And if
Yeah.
there are any questions, again, even after, if you put them in the comments, or Mike, you weren't listening. I'm just kidding. We're MEDRhythms.
I work at MEDRhythms, but I also work at Spalding Rehabilitation Hospital, where we're contracted. MEDRhythms is contracted through there. So
Yeah. Okay. So right here, down below, MEDRhythms, right there, Mike. Contact me. Amazing.
like, subscribe, all the fun things.
All the stuff. It's okay, Mike. I just give you a hard time. Buddy of mine from way back when in New York, in Long Island.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Well, nice to meet you, Mike.
Yes, nice to see you, Mike. Okay, so again, thank you for being here. I really appreciate it, and we'll do another show. I can put 10 people on this thing, and anybody else wants to go with you.
Cool.
Yeah, definitely. And thanks for the videos too. That really was awesome.
Yeah, of course. It brings it to life.
Yeah, absolutely. All right,
Great.
everyone.
Well,
We will
thanks,
talk to you
Jerry.
later. Thank you
bye,
so
all.
much.